You have a member of your team that's a jerk, and I bet you and some of your peers, some of your friends have gone to lunch and talked about that person and how difficult it is to work with them. That's not good enough. You have to actually have a discussion with that person, sit down, explain what the issue is. We're going to show you how to make that happen so that you can remove every asshole from your team and your team becomes amazing and you're happy. And every discussion at lunch with your peers is about how wonderful the team is, but it's on you to make that happen. So here we go.
Today is assholes part duh.
Yes, it is. I was hoping we could
No,
slide
no,
by
we can't
without that.
slide by. No, it's part duh. And Metacasters, cross your fingers that there's not a part trois coming
No,
out,
yeah.
right? There could be. There's a lot of assholes in the world, so we we could go down this path for forever.
For a
No,
while. Yeah. So
what?
today's episode
Yeah, go
is
ahead.
focused on it's a teammate of yours, it's a peer or a
Oh,
coworker. Previous
yeah,
episode was as a leader, you've
yep,
hired somebody or you've inherited somebody on your team and they're a real challenge. If that's what you're looking for, go listen to the previous episode. We covered that. We nailed it. We crushed it. This one is about you have that coworker. So say you have somebody, that you're in meetings with and you have the answers, but they're always busy talking and they never let you get a word in, and it's just like, hey, would you let me answer? Can I have a say in this, or are you always going to be the one that has the answer, then you're going to talk about it for 30 minutes and then maybe I'll get one or two words in? I've had to struggle with that for quite a while. That's been a real challenge for me. I won't name names, I won't use any scenarios, but that's been a challenge for me where I've had to work with a peer and say, like, hey, uh, do you
hey,
mind if
hey,
I'm like present?
are you talking to me?
Yeah, Bob.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So
Yes.
just say it. Have the damn courage to say,
Okay.
Bob, you're an asshole.
Well, but not that Bob's an asshole, but that's the discussion that Bob and I had. Like it was, hey Bob, do you mind if I get some words in? And Bob, it as I expect most discussions to go, doesn't know, didn't
Right.
know it's an issue. However
Yeah.
many years ago when we first talked about it, Bob was like crushed and like, oh, I have zero desire to like limit you and hold you down or hold you back. I'm sorry. I'll get better. It won't happen again. Let me know if it becomes an issue. I don't think I've ever let Bob know after that. Like I just had to tell him once and that was it, and he nailed it every time.
Hold
But
it. Let me hold it, Josh. Hold it. I want to talk now. No, I'm just kidding.
but I think that's step one is just have the conversation. And I expect it to go better than you fear it does.
Yeah.
Because deep down, that person that's an asshole, they don't want to be perceived as an asshole. Yes, there are some that might feel like that, but many people will have that, oh no, really? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll fix it. So assume positivity. We've talked about positive intent in the past. This is the same thing. Assume that that person is a good person and that they don't have any desire to create whatever drama or frustration or whatever it is that they're creating.
I mean, I'm going to yes and you. It's not a disagreement, but I think this is the start. So Metacasters, what I would say is you're going into a crossroads situation.
Oh yeah.
So do everything Josh said and then have this conversation. And it can go one of two ways. And he only highlighted the first way. The first way is you have someone who's really not an asshole and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to, and it goes, you might need to navigate it. They might be hurt. They might get a little defensive, but their hearts are in the right place and they lack self-awareness. And eventually they'll warm up and be thankful for the feedback, etc. And you'll see that. So that's path one. But then there's path two, which I am a flaming lunatic asshole. Uh, and 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 you're wrong. So Josh can have right, right. I'm not, and Josh is by bringing it up to me. So maybe in this Metacast, Josh, we talk about techniques or tactics or stories or
Yeah.
whatever on both paths, if that makes sense, right? Like how to handle advice for how to handle each path.
Yeah. I wanted to lead with the positive side
Yeah,
because I expect more often than not, that's the response. But more often than not, people opt out of the discussion because they think it's going to go bad. So what I want to do is encourage you to have that discussion. Is there's a pretty high chance that it goes well. Yes, there's some massaging and maneuvering that you have to do around emotions and things like that, but it I expect most of the conversations to be more positive than not. Yes, there are ones where it's a disaster, and we'll talk through that, but I just don't want people to opt out of having the discussion, thus perpetuating the situation, almost enabling the situation
right.
by showing that asshole that, hey, you keep doing your thing and nobody's going to say anything. So it's very
Exactly.
similar to what we talked about on the previous episode, where you're a leader and you have a responsibility to address this issue. Otherwise, you're giving them permission to be an asshole by just letting it happen. Now, peers have less of a say, but still, you're allowing it to happen.
Well, that makes it challenging. So that's where the previous discussion was maybe less challenging than this one because, and that's part of the dynamics is if Josh comes to me as a peer, I can look at him and it's like, what the hell are you talking? Or, why are you talking to me about this? Go do your job, right? When last time I checked, you're not doing your job. So focus, point your nose at your stuff, Josh, and get out of my face. So I'm exaggerating, but peer to peer. There's a third path. I think it's on the asshole path, but there's but the and it's so there's the positive reaction and positive forward movement, behavior change, etc. Then there's the I'm an asshole and I'm not going to ignore you. But then there's folks. Part of that path is they pretend that they're taking the feedback, uh, but they're really not. So that it's sort of like a fake. They're faking you out. They're disingenuous. I actually would rather someone be a flaming ass and have that discussion than someone tell me to my face something, but then not change their behavior on the other side, and let's not have a conversation. So I think there's a third path. Let's go into the happy path, Josh.
Can I jump in on that third before we go to the happy
Yeah,
path?
yeah, yeah.
I agree with you, but also be careful not to assume they're just ignoring the conversation. Part of
Mm,
it could be they're struggling to change their habit.
yep.
The change they might have to make could be challenging, could
Oh,
take a lot of effort. So, what could appear as inaction might actually be action, just there's still some struggling there. So, just if you detect path three, proceed with caution. That's all.
oh no, you're right. You're right. You don't want to rush to judgment.
Yeah.
But I think you can smell this third path, and you can see it in them because what they do is they smile and agree with everyone. They're two
Yeah.
faced, or they're
Yeah.
three faced, right? So it's not just your interaction. You can sort of sense this pattern with those folks. Maybe that's a two faced asshole or something. Let's go to happy path because I'm laughing
Let's do
too
it.
hard here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
happy
So
path to me is just coaching. I'll jump, and I think it's be a partner. Uh, Meet them with you. You said something magical, Josh. Assume positive intent. Uh, Assume it as they're going, as they're improving. Uh, Meet them where they are. Don't project like your rate on them because it's a fundamental change. It's a shift. Even if they were unaware, it's still a pattern that they would have to rewire. So be patient. So not a judge, not a jury. I think of it as more of a mentor. If they're willing, I like to offer myself, like create a mentoring relationship with them, so that I can be there to help as a guide. If they're willing to open the door that way.
yeah, I'll approach every discussion the same way, and every challenging topic I have with a employee or peer, whatever it is, there's a difference in expectation between me and that person. And I assume the difference in expectation is because there's a lack of information somewhere in the gap. One of us doesn't have a piece of info. So usually what happens in this in a situation like this, the asshole doesn't know or understand the ramifications of their actions. They don't
Yes.
understand how it affects somebody, how someone feels because of that. So that's the part of the discussion, is trying to educate them on, hey, when this happens, this is how the entire team feels. And it becomes difficult for me or us or whatever to continue or to do or whatever the thing is. And did you know that that happens? And usually it's no, actually, I haven't had any time when it's been, no, I knew that and I just kept doing it. The response is like, oh, I didn't know that and I don't care, or oh, I didn't know that and gosh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Let me fix that. So to me, historically, that's where the paths change, is once the aha moment is reached for the asshole, do they care or not? And
Right.
that's where paths start to separate.
I would agree with that. The other thing I would suggest, Metacasters, is allow for some settled time. I remember once I hired someone, or I moved. I transferred an engineer from one group to the other. Josh has probably heard this story, where he was underperforming and they were going to fire him. Well, they had promoted him, but they were going to fire him, and I didn't like that. He was a young engineer, and I said I'll take him, and I put him on a PIP. So I said, "Hi, I'm Bob Galen. Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Peter, to the group. And here's your PIP." And I'm not laughing about it. It was
Yeah.
horrible. It was horrible, but it was a congruent thing. I needed to give Peter some space. So I think not only assume positive intent, not only meet them where they are, but be prepared to give them some initial space to internalize it. Uh, it's almost like, going through, what is it, the 5 stages of grief or something like that. Depending on your message, you want to be compassionate and give them some space to go through that process.
Yeah. Again, what you're asking this human to do is change a fundamental way that they operate. And that's not easy, especially when they had no conscious awareness that it was an issue. So
I mean,
now it's recognizing, oh, I'm doing it again. Gosh,
yeah,
sorry. So it's all those things. There's a lot that has to happen. Now, let's talk. Okay, we covered the happy path. Things are
yep.
good. What happens when we have the discussion? We talk to that person, and you explain how their actions affect the entire team and emotions and all of that stuff, and they just look you dead in the face and say, "Yeah, so what?
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
Because this is
so
this is peer to peer, right?
yeah,
So you could get that response. One thing I might want to suggest in this case, in both cases, Josh, but in this case, is I was just writing down. I was thinking of blast radius. I may actually sort of copyright this and put it into a blog post. But I think one of the things we want to think of is there's an asshole blast radius that we want to keep in the back of our mind, both last week and this session. What is the impact to the organization? What is the impact? And to me, that drives the nature of the conversation, I
can I
think.
ask a clarifying question?
Yeah,
So the blast radius that the asshole creates, or the
correct.
blast radius that the discussion is going to create?
No, the blast radius that the asshole is creating in the
Okay.
organization and the impact it has.
Okay.
Not making it up, not exaggerating it,
Yeah.
but I think there's some minor. So there's minor asses and there's some major asses, and then there might be some that are just really destroying the entire culture of the company.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is we want to weigh that into our conversation. And if they say, "Hey, it's none of your business," I might, if it's a short blast radius, I might be okay with that.
Hmm.
If it's a large blast radius that's even peripherally touching my group, then I'm probably not going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I still we still may end up at an impasse, but we're going to have some more radically candid conversations. I'm just bringing that into play, Josh. Any reactions to that?
What popped into my mind is difficult teammates. And the first reaction I have whenever an employee of mine comes to me and says, like, hey, Bob's a real jerk. I can't work with him. What are you going to do about it? And my first response is, well, have you talked to Bob?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, no, and I'm not gonna, like, that's
Right.
not my job. That's not a thing I do. I'm not. And you know what? That's a reasonable response because not many people are trained to handle the situation, but that's an opportunity for you to acquire the skill. So a good leader will sit down with you and say, like, okay, cool. Here's how you approach the discussion. You talk about potentially the three paths and things that are, and okay, I still want you to talk to Bob first because I'm going to
Right.
assume positive intent and I'm going to assume the least amount of drama that we can create around the situation, the best. So let's keep the blast radius small on addressing the asshole. And let's have you talk to him first, and then start there. So there, which is why I asked the clarifying question, because if this is just they're a raging asshole and they've been that way for months, it's not fair for me to ask that team member to go solve the problem. It's upon the leader to go solve the problem.
I
But
would.
if it's a relatively new upstart, this is when you as a teammate, you need to do the right thing and try and help that person. One of the things that I believe that I have a responsibility of as a leader, and I think teammates do as well, is recognizing when someone is heading down a wrong path and they not know it, whether they're writing code the wrong way or they're
Right.
being a teammate the wrong way or whatever. I'm doing them a disservice if I just let them go and like, man, that guy's a jerk and he's just going to continue to be a jerk. I'm going to live with it, as opposed to like having empathy and like, hey, maybe this person doesn't know the drama that they're creating, so let me sit down and talk with them.
I think part of what I was trying to say too, I agree with everything you said, Josh. Is blast radius would drive my behavior not just in the conversation. So let's say you and I are peers, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
You're the VP of DevOps, and I'm the VP of Dev or something like that, and we have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an asshole that's just sort of ripping the soul out of my team in some way,
Yeah.
and we have a discussion. And so the blast radius in this case is pretty broad. It's not just affecting soft people; it's also affecting our bottom line, like getting stuff out the door, uh, and you're pushing back. I'm going to have some radically candid conversations with you, but if you don't take action, I'm going to pursue other actions, not
Yeah.
necessarily terminate you, but I'm going to be talking to other peers to say, do you, I mean, Josh, help me out here. Do you see Josh? Is it me or is it Josh? I might talk to HR. I might talk to our boss or something. I would typically not do that, right? I'm going to handle it unless the blast, well, there's two parts of it. The blast radius is broad and you're an entrenched ass, right? And then I'm going to pursue some other activities, I think. I don't know what they are. They're situational.
Mm-hmm.
Any reactions?
Just at the peer level, you're going to have a discussion with other peers about the asshole.
Yeah.
It's not going to go undiscussed. It's
Yeah.
it's impossible to ignore. It's impossible not to accept the reality. The discussions are going to happen. So it might be a coordinated attack or a planned attack of like, okay, maybe Bob's the right person to talk to them. Let me go talk to Bob because Bob has a
Ah,
relationship with them or whatever.
oh,
So
that's an important point.
yeah,
Not in a bushwhacking way, but in a who might be the best peer to talk to
right,
Josh.
right, right. Who
Yeah,
who
yeah.
who has the most? I don't know what it could be.
Rela-
Tenure. It could be knowledge. It could be
It could be
anything. Yeah,
relationship. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So so it doesn't always have to be you, but it's I don't think I've ever had an issue with a peer or I haven't talked to another peer about that challenge. Be like, man,
That's
I'm really
true.
struggling,
That's true.
and then trying to coordinate. And I use the words coordinate and attack. That sounds bad, but it really is planning the best way to attack the problem. You're not attacking the person, you're attacking the problem.
Well, and these are leadership roles, Metacaster. So this isn't just about an individual. This is about an individual who has ripple effects in the pond, right? They're affecting, whether it's, I talk blast radius, but they're affecting others. It's
Mhm.
beyond that. They're affecting the bottom line. It goes back to what Josh was saying initially. The worst response is doing nothing. And in these cases, depending on that radius, doing nothing could be catastrophic. You're avoiding doing your job. Hey,
Sure.
Josh, I want us to start blowing our own horns a little bit from what we're doing and products and services and stuff. Do you have anything going on?
I do. So I've launched Substack. I'm trying to be like Bob. I'm trying to write. Now, I'm not quite as gifted as he is, but I'm putting everything I have into it. So I would love for you to subscribe to the Leadership Lighthouse, which is my Substack. There's new posts every Tuesday and Thursday. You can subscribe for free or you can subscribe paid. Every fourth post is reserved for only paid subscribers, but you get 75% of every word that is written for free. Tell me how that's not a good thing to sign up. Every Tuesday and Thursday, get a little bit of leadership knowledge showing up in your inbox.
Hey, Metacasters, get on that. I'm a free member. I may pay, but I'm cheap. But the point is, Josh, the stuff is good. I joke too much. I've poked at Josh for years that he should write more because he's got wisdom to share, and a lot of it, and stories and stuff. And I'm just so proud of him starting to do that. And there's value. I've read every one end to end, and I'm not just saying this. There's value in this man, and you should sign up. You should subscribe. So do it now.
Yeah, what Bob said. All right, back to the episode. So I just want to wrap up hey, we had the discussion. The person looks you in the eye and is like, so what? What do you do then? Right? Like, what are the appropriate actions? Is it okay to like go above them and talk to their boss? Or do you talk to your boss? Or like what's the right way to handle that situation?
I mean, I think it's situational, but you have to it's the same, avoid the freeze.
Yeah.
So so to me the strategy is, and our inclination is to freeze because there's an excuse, right?
Yeah.
We hit an impasse. Oh, I did my part. I tried.
Right.
Impasse, right? So don't freeze. Don't hit, you have to overcome the impediment. So do something positive. Go, and I don't know, talk to a peer, talk to a colleague, talk to the boss, um, talk to a sounding board. You can even have an external coach. You could ring Josh up, right, and talk to Josh offline. He doesn't even work there. And actually, that's not just talking to Josh, but an external voice would give you sort of an
Yeah.
unbiased perspective. But do something, and take action, and not just have these conversations. Go back to the ass. We got to do something about it. I remember
Mhm.
in the last episode we were talking about no asshole rule. Everyone, right? We want to have the the no asshole rule. So pretend that sign's up there, and you have an asshole in your midst, and you're like, you have to do something about it. It's like Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, right? You're Elmer Fudd, and you gotta catch that rascally asshole and do something about it.
That's a solid reference. An old reference, but a
It's a
solid
very
reference.
it's a very old reference. I know. I'm trying to think of if we missed anything, Josh, that's important. Um,
Yeah. No, I think to wrap up, it's exactly what Bob said. Do something. Otherwise, you're complicit in the
yeah,
assholery,
yeah,
So do something. And we understand, we accept that these discussions are often new. It's not a thing that maybe you've done. But study up. Radical Candor. Bob's talked about that book. Crucial Conversations. That's a book that
yep,
I've talked about. Talk to somebody about having a discussion like this. Get help, get support. Talk to me. Talk to Bob. There's lots of people that can help make this happen. Some of your bosses, some of your peers,
yep,
right? HR. Just reach out to the leader of HR and say, like, hey, and don't name names. Hey, I got this issue I'm trying to solve and I'd like to address it, but I'm not sure how. Can you help me? I tell you what, HR people will spring into action and you will be ready to rock and roll with that discussion in no time. So there are plenty of places for you to get support to have this discussion, but most important, you have to have it.
I mean, that's the prime directive in crucial conversations, folks. There's this quote like the elevator pitch or the one thing that matters from crucial conversations, and they talk about there's several paragraphs, but they talk about leaders when they're having crucial conversations find a way to have the conversation. They avoid the avoidance, and because 80% of leaders are in avoidance, right? Folks who are committed to this responsibility that we have, this fiduciary responsibility to eliminate assholes and to have crucial conversations, we avoid the avoidance and we enter. Even if you suck at the initial foray into the conversation, you still had it as opposed to avoiding it.
Mm.
And
Yep.
then get better at that. You don't have to be artful. You don't have to, be Bob Galen or Josh or Barack Obama and have this elegant prose. No. The final thing I would say is, and don't just say it. And this goes back to crucial conversations. Don't try to obfuscate. Don't try to use shit sandwiches. I'm
Mm.
I'm I'm feeling freed up today, everyone. We're using the asshole word, so now we're using shit sandwiches. Don't paint. Don't give them rosy feedback before. Just be a straight shooter, like Josh. That's role play, Josh. You came to me years ago and you said, Bob, I, I, Bob, I can't get a word in edgewise. And I mean, he didn't hand me a book. He didn't give me a shit sandwich. He didn't say, Bob, did you see that bluebird in the sky this morning? That it really wasn't. Its little bill had a rubber band around it. Did you notice that? What did you think about it? No. He cut to the freaking chase, and we had a conversation. And so it's actually, the more artful you are, I think the worse the conversation is.
Mm.
The more political you're going to be, the more artful. If you try to be subtle, no, none of that. Pretend that you're talking to a friend and you have a relationship and just say it and then take it from there would be my final, like, sort of my stick a fork in it advice.
Yeah. Jeez.
What do you think,
That
Josh?
fork is. Let's just get to the point and close this sucker out. So
Oh.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so oh, you don't have to hit me in the head. So, from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
and beautiful downtown Fuquay Arena, North Carolina.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake.
And bake.
Take care, y'all.